This is LA Business Spotlight.
Greed is good.
Always be closing.
It's strictly business.
Welcome to LA Business Spotlight. I'm Joel Metzger. This is the first in a series of special segments on social media and business. And today we're talking about Twitter with my guest, Phil Pallen, who has a new book out called Shut Up and Tweet. Welcome, Phil.
Thank you for having me.
So just to start with, separate Twitter as a platform for business as opposed to LinkedIn, as opposed to Facebook. What's the perfect candidate for Twitter as far as a business person goes?
Yeah, I mean, I work with primarily personal brands, individuals. So it's very rare for me to even work with a company. And so one of the challenges we have is people come to me and say, there are all these social media platforms. Which ones should I be on? You know, and I mean, ideally you're on all of them, but let's be realistic with time. You probably can't be awesome at all of them. And so one of the first things we do is we figure out, depending on what your brand is, we isolate what your top 3 social media platforms are. So I always say, rather than being mediocre at 10 platforms, I'd rather you be a rock star on 3. And Twitter, 9 times out of 10, I always say is the number 1 on your list. Of course, we've got Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, Foursquare, Snapchat, Instagram, The list goes on.
Right.
And Pinterest, those are going to be dependent on your brand. But I believe at this stage, right now, Twitter is the only social media platform where you can access a targeted audience for free. And it's the most amazing tool to build your business, to make money, to meet clients, to really grow your business and your brand in ways that you can't do on any other social media platform.
Why is Twitter more targeted as opposed to the others?
Yeah, so I go into detail on exactly how to do this. A lot of my clients are on Facebook. Everyone seems comfortable with Facebook. Facebook. We get it. We're on it. It's comfortable, although they change and everyone freaks out, right? The design. But the fact of the matter is, over the past few years, we've been building our Facebook pages, growing it by hundreds and maybe thousands, and maybe even spending a little money on Facebook advertising. And that's all fine and dandy until a few months ago, Facebook decides that now you have to pay to play. Right. So you have invested and spent time for years to build your audience, people that are following you, that want your updates, or they're a fan or a like of your page. And now, unless you pay to promote your posts, only 5%, around that, of course it varies, a very small percentage of your audience is actually going to see your posts, right. Which is, it depends on a variety of factors. The virality of that post. It depends on Facebook's edge rank, this big mystery that, that we don't know. No one knows the specifics of it. It's kind of like Google. It determines when and who sees the posts. Right. So if we look, so that's Facebook, and that's my big beef with Facebook. And the reason I wrote a book about this is I've got a lot of clients that are disappointed, that are like, why isn't this working? And I mean, I think it's time to move on from Facebook unless you've got lots of money that you want to blow. Most of my clients don't, even at all different levels. I work with people on television, on every major network in the US. And then I've got clients who are entrepreneurs who are just starting out and they're on a shoestring budget. No one wants to spend money. And so, that's why I kind of went about this in a different way and built a strategy for Twitter. Here's to answer your question, here's the crazy thing that people don't even realize. Twitter's kind of like an airport. Facebook is like your close-knit group of friends, right? Anyone who you don't know can't come in. Right. You click ignore on those friend requests, don't you?
Yeah.
Absolutely. And on Twitter, it's more like an airport. There's people moving in all different directions with all different purposes. And it's a hub, of all different people where there's a mutual kind of understanding. And networking in this environment is okay. Now, you're not going to go up to someone with your business card and say, hi, I'm Phil. I'm a brand strategist. You should hire me, because I'm going to back away and go, okay, you're weird. But instead, maybe I give you a compliment, or maybe you interview me, or we have some kind of kick off and we have this great little conversation,
Right.
which could lead to working together, which could lead to, oh, you should meet my friend who does this. Who knows, right? Point is, Twitter is a tool where networking and making connections is really welcomed, and that's the beauty of it.
Right. More of an open source socially.
It really is.
It's more open.
And if people are using the tool properly, they're using Twitter as a tool for conversation, not as a tool for broadcast.
Right.
In terms of building your audience on Facebook, most people, they're not just going to come to you automatically. You've got to pay for ads. It's pretty cheap compared to other platforms like LinkedIn, where they also offer an advertising platform. But it's still money, right? It's still money. And now it's not just ads, it's also paying for your posts. Even my clients on television, they're not even paying to promote the post. It just doesn't feel like a good use of marketing dollars. So let's go back to Twitter for a second and think about your profile, okay? And think about, I call in the book, I call it your hit list. Who are the brands that are like you? Who are your direct competitors? Who are your indirect competitors? And who are your brand heroes? And I explain what all those things are, So for a jewelry brand, let's say an independent jewelry store, maybe a brand hero is Tiffany's, a global company, or, likewise a coffee shop and Starbucks, Right. So we make some assumptions here that obviously there are people like you on Twitter, and maybe a few people that are a few steps above you, on Twitter, that have grown an audience of people that are interested in their brand. Well, on Facebook, you pay more depending on how targeted the ad is, right? So the more you add into that, the more layers. So age, sex, interests, other likes. I mean, you can get so specific on Facebook. Why do you think they're so anxious for you to fill out your favorite books and your favorite music and your, where you went to school and who you like? That because they use it for advertising. People don't realize this. They think they're jazzing up their MySpace profile. It's like, no, this is all being used
You're being
for advertising.
profiled so they can sell you as a demo.
Exactly. And so Facebook's great in that way for advertisers because it is so cheap to access a targeted audience compared to other platforms. However, Twitter is free if you go about this properly. Think about your hit list. So those people I mentioned. Let's go back to the jewelry store example. Tiffany's. They've got millions. I don't have my phone in front of me, but I know if I pull them up right now, I can tell you they've got millions of followers. People, making the assumption these are people probably interested in jewelry, probably interested, especially if they're in the same area. These are people that are already compiled on a list for you that you can access for free, right? People don't even think about it this way. They use Twitter as a tool to follow their friends and follow celebrities. It's not that. If you're going to use it effectively, keep that on Facebook.
Right.
Instead, use Twitter as a tool to build your business, to get in front of new faces. And here's something. When you follow someone on Twitter, so say you follow me on Twitter and I have my notifications enabled, I'm going to get an email that says, your business or you're following me. Okay, so your picture, your bio, your description, all of that is going to appear in my inbox.
And a website a lot of times, right?
And a website if it's listed on your profile.
Yeah.
All of that is going to appear in my inbox. It's kind of like an ad, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right? Like, so if we start to train ourselves to think about this in a really powerful marketing tool, for genuine connection and conversation, there's a lot you can do. And I go into obviously more detail than that, but that gives you a general overview of kind of my philosophy and strategy to use this tool. And I get clients every single week from Twitter that I work with that pay me money to do things for them and to work with them. I mean, these are people that I have people tweeting about the book that I don't even know.
All right, so let's say you're just starting with Twitter for your business or for your consultancy or just some kind of business need. What are the first steps? What do they need to know as they go in?
Yeah, that's exciting. They always say too, if you're learning how to snowboard, the better you are at skiing, the harder it is to learn how to snowboard. But if we're starting from scratch, we get a blank canvas. That's very exciting. So there are a few things. There's got to be strategy behind everything you do. And I usually pick apart a few pieces. So what is it you're tweeting? They can't just be broadcast. It can't just be me, what I'm eating for breakfast. No one cares, right? Unless that's your brand. So you want to be conscious of what you're tweeting. I break it down into 4 tweet types. So every day I want you to tweet 4 times, let's say. Now, to some people who are used to Twitter, that might seem like a small amount, but for most people, it kind of feels like I'm asking them to climb Mount Everest, right? If they're brand new. So 4 times a day, 1 of each tweet type. We do a website link, which is anything about you, self-promotional. I don't call it self-promotion because I prefer a link to be attached. So like a blog post, a press, a recent press appearance, anything about you, and ideally a link makes us engage with you for a few minutes as opposed to a few seconds that it takes us to read the tweet. So website link is the first one, and then I say throw in a quick question. So anything that is meant for engagement, the shorter the better. Could be on brand or not on brand. It could be something as easy as coffee or tea, right? That's not on brand for me, but I'm also not a brand robot. And so I'm a human being, and that's okay to be a human being on Twitter.
You're just trying to get engagement. You're just trying to get an answer back.
I'm trying to start a conversation, right? I'm trying to start a conversation. So that's tweet type number 2. Then we have industry buzz. Industry buzz is really important for experts. It's to establish your credibility as an expert in the field. Could be a statistic, a fact. For me, if I go and do a talk or a webinar, it's usually recorded. Even this podcast, for example, I'll go back and listen and extract little one-liners from it because this is like second nature to me, but it's not to most people. And so I then queue those up in Twitter, and that's my industry buzz tweet for the day. And you wouldn't believe that those are the tweets that get the most retweets and the most shares.
And that, to me, that your number 3 here is got so much power because you didn't write this white paper. You're just posting this white paper. You're just linking to it, but that content kind of sticks to you. You presented it to the world. So even though you didn't generate this content always, just having a good link, a good piece of content saying, hey, check this out, that's like a freebie. I mean, it's powerful.
Exactly. What it is it's a way to stay on people's radar and a really non-salesy approach at saying, here I am, and just remember me, I'm an expert, Like, think about this when you're driving down Sunset Boulevard and you see an ad for Levi's jeans. You're not going to, change your plans for the day and drive to the nearest mall and buy that exact pair of jeans you see. And they pay a lot of money, upwards of $100,000 a month. And that doesn't even include the fact that they're competing for that billboard. And they know, these advertisers are spending thousands of dollars a day, and they know that it's not going to be an instant call to action or an instant sale. So why are they spending thousands of dollars a day for brand awareness?
Top of mind.
To stay on your radar. And that costs them thousands of dollars. And for you on Twitter, it costs nothing. Right. And so that's my 3rd tweet type is industry buzz. And the final one I think is the most important, number 4. I call it networking effort. And this is where I want you to reach out to someone brand new every single day. So not someone you know. This is someone you don't know. You could be flipping through a magazine on the airplane and you read a column or an article you really like, or you see someone's name. And my magazines are full of Post-it notes and circles, highlights. I'm that nerd on the airplane. People are probably wondering what I'm doing, but it's because I want to go find these people on Twitter and not just say, if it's someone from television, not just say, oh my God, I love you, you're the greatest, because that's not going to go anywhere. But, to say something specific, something like, loved your perspective on this. And then you share a link. Or if it's a celebrity who just wrote a book, tweet a little picture of them or of you holding the book, and accompany it with a good line, a good something. And so the networking effort is to make those new connections and to do it in a strategic way. In my job, it's kind of fun because I get to play both sides of this. So I help people strategically get noticed on the internet, So what is it you tweet to these influencers that have hundreds of thousands or millions of followers so that you get the retweet, or you get a favorite or you get a reply, you get some kind of acknowledgement. And how do you rise above the noise of all the other people trying to do the same? Right. So I help people with that, and I've done it for my own self a few times. I've been retweeted by all kinds of big fancy people. Just I'm my own guinea pig, so I see what works. But then I also play the role of gatekeeper for a lot of my clients. If we're live tweeting or I'm helping them with their social media strategy, many times I'm on the phone with them while their show is on, and I'm the one, or I'm handling it for them. I'm the one who says or who decides this gets retweeted, this gets ignored, this gets replied, whatever, A lot of times they're looking to me for that decision, knowing what we want and what we want to put out there. So I always say, be really strategic about it and put some thought and effort into it, and it will pay off. If you say, I love you so much, you're the greatest, you're my inspiration, an influencer is probably not going to retweet that because it kind of makes them look full of themselves, right? And so, but if you make it informed, you make it really kind of focused and show that you put some work into it, there's a good chance that they'll acknowledge it in some way. So that's the fourth tweet type. So, that's kind of my strategy for what to tweet. And then you've got to make sure your profile looks awesome. Display picture, cover
and they
photo.
just changed formats, right, recently?
They just changed formats. Yeah. And so now you've got this big honkin' cover photo.
The big billboard.
Big billboard. It's very hard to design for. It's 1,500 pixels wide by 500 tall. I've seen a few clients actually, I've seen a few influencers do some cool stuff with that design. Rather than just using one image there, they've done it kind of paneled, which I think is kind of cool. Like do 3 photos there and then, just kind of make it look good. But it's exciting. Anytime we have large visuals to showcase a brand, I get excited.
Yeah.
And you've noticed like Twitter, even from the past few years, and Facebook have started to really embrace this because it's a way to make your profile unique. And for me, from a branding standpoint, it's exciting because we get to use those visuals to tell a story.
Yeah. What's interesting to me is Facebook, Twitter, websites in general, they a lot of them have that very wide Panavision-shaped billboard at the top. But if you go to a lot of stock photo sites, they're not always in that aspect ratio. They're not nearly that long and narrow. And cameras generally don't take panoramas, So it's I'm often challenged of like, where can I find some visuals that are that long and narrow to fit? It's a cool look, but it seems like all the stock photo sites haven't caught up to that yet. They're just not in that aspect ratio. They're more like a 3x4 shape, a TV shape, or a movie screen shape, and
exactly.
And not
it's
an IMAX
really
shape.
tough.
Yeah.
It's really, really tough. But I mean, if you look at all the platforms, they're moving in that direction.
That may be one reason why people are splitting it into 3, because unless you're out in the desert and you have a panoramic landscape shot, there's just not a lot of things that you would shoot that are that wide.
I just got off a phone call 15 minutes ago with a client and the photographer. I used one of my photographers for a project, and I work with a small list. I have a small list of photographers that I know can deliver what I need for social media purposes and for branding. And so that's a whole other conversation is like, when I'm branding someone, it starts with visuals. I can't build a beautiful brand for you if all I have to work with are glamour shots from 1997. I mean, it's just not going to work. And so the first thing, even before a website, I won't take on a website project unless someone has kick-ass visuals, and they have to be recent, 6 months. Right. If they're longer than that, you're pushing it. I'll go send you to do photos, pair you with one of my photographers so that I get the visuals that I need. I don't want you smack dab in the middle of the photo. That's useless to me. Right. I want you left and right justified so that I've got room for a logo or I've got room for text. I don't need a nice, even portrait shots are completely useless to me.
It's the wrong shape.
2 uses. If I'm printing it out and putting it in a press kit, like a headshot, or I'm putting it on your About page. Those are the only 2 places that I can use a portrait shot. All your display pictures are square, or a circle, but they're cropped in 1 by 1, so it's a nice square. And now, the cover photos, header photos, each platform has its own name for it, but it's the same.
It would behoove photographers to really be aware of these aspect ratios and where the logo typically pops in on all these.
Definitely.
So that they, even if their camera isn't shooting that exact aspect ratio, they can frame the shot so that it will look okay. You'll trim off the top and the bottom, but you're not you're not stuck with something that's just too narrow to fit these different platforms.
Exactly.
Which change all the time.
They change all the time, but I will say shooting and anticipating that kind of horizontal framing is really, you're safe with that, because if you look at Twitter, Facebook, YouTube is probably the hardest to design for.
YouTube is like a ribbon across
It's a
the
ribbon.
top.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Yeah. Well, we've already kind of covered, you have a well-rounded breakfast of 4 types of tweets, and you're saying do 4 a day is kind of your minimum.
I would say
your balanced
minimum.
Breakfast kind of minimum.
Yeah, and people can schedule them too. So if you're overwhelmed by having to do that every day, I would be. I couldn't do 4 a day, even me, because I'm too busy doing everyone else's. But I schedule them usually a day in advance, so they're still new, they're still fresh.
Use Buffer, or what do you?
I love Buffer. Yeah, Buffer is my platform of choice. There are all kinds of others out there, and I've tried all of them. Hootsuite, Sprout Social is paid. Hootsuite is free. Hootsuite's probably the most common one. I say it's like the Dell of social media social media management, SMMS.
Buffer's freemium, right? They have a free platform, and then they have the upgrade.
And it's just easy to use. I'm just a fan of their
And you can use it for all the
interface.
different. They cover everything. They cover LinkedIn.
Yeah,
They cover,
and they add on more as they can when the APIs open up and they've got a relationship with those platforms. But I think Buffer is the easiest to use. I like their mentality of keeping your account topped up, so it's less about here's this and this is when it's going out. You set the times you want it to go out each day. It's really user friendly. Hootsuite it works, but it's ugly. It's just not a friendly interface.
Because it was early in, right? So
they've not upgraded it. I'm ready for them to come up with something kick-ass so that they're back on top. But Buffer is growing quickly because it's awesome and it's easy to use. I'm a big fan of it.
Well, this is a good place to take a break. I am here with Phil Pallen. He just wrote this great book called Shut Up and Tweet, and we are talking Twitter. We'll be right back after this break.
LA Business Spotlight is brought to you by Icebox Logic, makers of fine handcrafted audio and video. Go to iceboxlogic.net to see examples. Your company needs to communicate.
We are back with Phil Pallen. He just wrote Shut Up and Tweet. He is a Twitter master. And we are talking Twitter. What are some best practices to actually grow your following?
Sure. So one thing you've got to be aware of, if you're not already, is your ratio on Twitter. So that's your following, so how many people you are following, and your followers, how many people are following you. Now, if you have a really high following, let's think about this for a sec, really high following, so you're following a lot of people, and a really low follower count, so not many people are following you back, you kind of become the loser.
I was just going to say loser.
Yeah, you do. You become, and none of us want to be a loser, right? Mm-hmm. So you've got to be really conscious of your ratios, and it really contributes to people's first impression of you in the digital age, right? And nowadays we're grappling with 2 different versions of ourselves. There's the version of us in real life. You and I get to sit here and have a conversation in person. But then we have the second version, which is online. That's our display picture.
The important version.
The important version, yeah. The version that keeps me employed, But really, so my job is to craft a damn good second version of you online. And the best personal branding is when we replicate the in-person experience as closely as possible. And so that ties in with your brand voice that you build with your tweets and all of that. And if all the puzzle pieces are in place, then you can, and I go into detail in the book about how to write your Twitter bio. It seems so simple, but I have a very specific strategy on how to do it. first sentence does this, second sentence does this. Like, it's got to be done a certain way so that it works for you, not against you. Right. And so your ratios, coming back to your ratios, you want to keep your following as low as possible and your followers as high as possible.
Well, wait a second, because I've seen some people, they're following 2 people and they have 10,000 followers.
Yeah.
So they're a movie star of some kind.
Exactly.
And I know instantly when I see that, yeah, great. If you want to hear, it's a one-way conversation. They're not going to follow me back. They're only following 2 people,
Right.
and they have half the world following them. So, is there a flip side to that ratio of, if you want a two-way conversation, if they're not following anybody, I know they're not going to follow me as I click on them.
The brands that are best positioned for growth and for conversation follow a specific ratio. It's 30-70. So 30% following, 70 followers. Okay, so moral of the story is people that follow 2 people and have 1 million followers are not positioned for growth and to really make use of the platform. So, but at the same time, you don't. Some brands, like retail brands, will keep their following and their followers close, and I'm okay with that. I think that's okay. But ideally, you have more followers than following. I mean, it just looks good. People are more likely to follow you.
You look popular.
You look popular. You look like a legitimate brand. You don't look like someone that started yesterday. And so,
and what's interesting is it's a ratio. It's not exactly like how many people.
No, it's a ratio.
You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
like the ratio can work whether it's a smaller following or whether it's a huge following.
Right.
Your brain kind of says, oh well, a lot of compared to the people he's following, a lot of people like this guy.
Right. If I have 20,000 followers and I'm only following 2 people, you're going to kind of think that I'm a jackass, right? Like, kind of.
Yeah.
And I don't blame you. So you got to show that you're here. You're here to participate. You're an expert in your field. That you've got a following. My moral of the story here is you should never be following anyone who's not following you back. Okay. And then you go, well, Phil, what if I want Kim Kardashian's butt Instagrams and she's not following me back? Well, I don't know why you'd want to follow her in the first place. I guess that's why. But, but you want to make sure that you add her to a list. And instead, as you start to, if you follow how I teach you to do it in the book, how to grow your followers by thousands, your newsfeed will start to become useless because you're using Twitter in a more savvy way than most people are. And the news feed is going to show you all kinds of tweets from people you don't even know. Right. Don't even bother looking at it. It's not going to function for you anymore, and that's totally okay. You're rising above these other people that use Twitter as consumers. You're becoming savvy. You're going to grow your business with Twitter. So I always say keep a list or 2, curated, it could be public or private, of the people that you actually want their updates from. And so you can add them to a list and get their updates on that list even if you're not following them. So you should never, ever be following anyone who's not following you back because they're adding 1 to your following and nothing to your followers.
Right.
And those people are dead to us.
Well, while we're on lists, how else can you use lists?
Yeah.
Like I have lists for my Twitter feed of people who I know who like to retweet me, so I want to see what they're saying because I will probably retweet them. So how else can you use lists?
Yeah, lists are really cool, and it's something that not a lot of people use on the platform. You kind of have to be in the game to even notice them or to even start using them. A lot of people have questions about them. But that's a really good example of a way to use lists. If you're following 1,000 people, you're going to miss a lot of people's tweets. But if you've curated a list of 100 people, and those are all people that you want updates from, chances are you're going to see most of the content that goes out, depending on how often you're on Twitter. Another way to use lists, a lot of my clients use this, is create a private list and monitor your competitors. If it's a private list, they're not going to get alerted that they've been added to a list. It's private, right? If they've got a public profile, much like when I talked about, being able to see the other people's followers, this is public information. If someone has a private Twitter profile, like just delete it and get out of here. There's no use for that unless you're strictly consuming content, which some people use Twitter in that way. But to me, it's nonsense. It makes no sense. So I would suggest using, creating a private list to monitor your competitors.
I like
people
that.
like you so that you can keep an eye on them.
Right. See what they're coming up
Exactly.
with.
And then do it better.
And then do it better and do it before they do it. I like that. Okay. What about some common mistakes people make? Over tweeting or under tweeting or what? I mean, I'm sure there's a million mistakes, but
Oh gosh, where do I even start? I could be here for 10 hours.
Give me a couple.
Yeah. Okay. I'll give you some that I've seen recently. How about this morning? So, I think people make the mistake of not tweeting consistently. I'm guilty of this, which how terrible is that? I wrote a freaking book about this. And even for me, I try to follow my 4 tweet types a day, but sometimes I fall behind. And guess what? It happens. But scheduling is a way to stay on top of that. Sure. So really for this platform to work effectively for you, you've got to be posting consistently. People look when they go to follow you, they look at when was the last tweet that you sent and what was it?
That's the third big number, isn't it? Followers, following, and how many tweets.
You got
Those
it.
are the 3 big numbers that at a glance you get an idea. Are they active or are they not active?
Exactly.
Are they popular or
if
are they not
popular? If someone has 10 tweets, you're not going to follow them. What's the point?
What's the point? Yeah.
Exactly. And so, sticking to the 4 a day, if you can do more, fantastic. But really, you've got to be, again, staying on people's radar every single day. Another mistake is that people don't update their profile design. Again, I'm a branding guy, so I'm a stickler on this, but it really, really matters. It's like handing someone an ugly coffee-stained business card. Like, you just don't do that, right? Your profile photo has to be fantastic. Your cover photo needs to be something other than, nothing, or even worse, that display picture with the egg on it.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Loathe.
They still have that? It seems like it's just so Stone Age to use that egg as a...
Some people never change it. And if you don't change it, people are going to assume you're spam. So
right.
You've got to, if your photos can't be pixelated, they got to be nice, crystal clear, and ideally they show me what your brand is. Another mistake is hashtags. People use hashtags like they're nuts. So hashtags... And when I speak at conferences and stuff, this is one of the questions I get the most at the end of doing a talk. People say, Phil, once and for all, can you explain to me what a hashtag is and how I should know it and use it and what have you? So a hashtag really, and I'll explain it now so that I can tell you how to use them right.
Okay.
Hashtags are a filing system. It's like taking a yellow Post-it note and sticking it on a tweet and then throwing it into a bin with all the other tweets with yellow Post-it notes on them. It's a filing system, and what it does, very simply, you take a word, add the number sign to the front of it, and it turns that single word into a hyperlink. So people can click that word and see all the other tweets that are also tagged.
They can
with
click.
that.
They can click that link in any other platform. It will, or within
it would be within Twitter.
Only within Twitter.
Yeah,
okay.
It would be within Twitter, and you can use an SMMS, so like a Hootsuite or Buffer or something like that, or TweetDeck is another one. But you can click. You can click that and see the stream of all the other people that are using that hashtag. Really, it's a method of organizing, categorizing content.
Is it also kind of a search keyword? Like if you want to get into this certain thing, is one of the things you search for with the hashtag?
Yeah, people tend to search often with hashtags, but just because you don't use a hashtag doesn't mean you're not necessarily going to come up in search. It just depends on how common that word is used. Like if you type think about all the stuff that's going to come up. You're going to get lost in that sea. But if you're tweeting about something specific, even if you use that word or a series of words, it'll still come up in search. Twitter search is a really powerful tool. But certainly, yes, people are looking for hashtags. So by using one or two of those pertaining to what you're talking about, it's going to make sense. Let me give you an example. You're at an event. How are you ever going to know what other people at that event are talking about if they don't say, I was at the California Women's Conference last week. Not everyone is going to say California Women's Conference in their tweet.
Because that's half your tweet.
That's half your tweet.
Yeah.
So instead, they use hashtag CWC14 or 2014. And by knowing that that's on your tweet, that's that little moment, that little categorization where we put your tweet in with all the other tweets that people are saying at that event. And if you're smart at this event, you'll follow that stream throughout the day. You'll maybe even follow those people and start tweeting with them. These are people at the conference with the same interests and goals as you.
Right.
Maybe they'll turn into a client.
That's what I gather from it. It's not just a filing system. It's also kind of an in crowd. It's kind of like here's our secret handshake we're all about this one topic,
Yes.
this one thing. And so, especially when the hashtag is like you say, is abbreviated or it's just not something that you would normally just search for and come up and start following these people. But it becomes kind of a club, like a
Definitely.
little inner circle. Okay, but you're getting back to mistakes.
Yeah.
Too many hashtags are bad.
I think so. People are using them almost like to be ironic, like as a joke.
Right.
Like if your tweet has more hashtags than words, then that's a bit of a problem. It becomes distracting. People are just I just find they're ruining hashtags for me. Like use them when they have a function, but don't go nuts with them because they're just distracting.
Right. Okay. Now, all this is great. You're growing your following. You're following all these best practices. There has to be an end result. So how do you, let's say you're a business, how do you convert this to, I'll just say sales, whether it's getting a client? I mean, okay, sometimes maybe just growing your following is the end all and be all. You want people to be aware of your brand or aware of your show or whatever it is. But let's say really what you want is a new client base. What are some ways you can do that kind of conversion to a client, going from a follower, getting to this person and getting them to buy your stuff?
Yeah, well, if you think about business, and I think everyone would agree, everyone has different practices and theories, but I think everyone would agree on one thing, that the strongest business comes from word of mouth, comes from referrals. And so, if a lot of times that's a conversation you have with someone. It could be at an event, or it could be, hey, you should talk to my friend who does this. It's that conversation, depending on where you take that conversation, is really going to determine what happens next. If you're salesy from the get-go, we've all learned to shut that off.
Right.
I'm 25. I've grown up with advertising, computers. I'm just at that, right at the beginning of that, where I really have grown up with computers for the most part. And media all around me, radio, TV, I shut out that stuff. I just have this like switch in my brain where I go, oh, not paying attention.
Right.
And so it's really got to be, from a business strategy standpoint, you've got to, make sure that all the puzzle pieces are in place. Your display picture, your cover photo, your bio, your website, your location. And even on the new Twitter, you can even pin a tweet up at the top of your profile, which is really cool. I don't
want to digress, but what's the advantage of that? Because I saw that new function.
Yeah.
So what do you get by pinning a tweet to the top?
If you've got something that you want to see people, or that you want people to see rather, more than just, for the duration of it on their newsfeed and then it disappears.
I see.
Like, for example, I launched a book, so I've kept a pinned tweet about that, the link to it on Amazon.
So it doesn't get pushed down in your scroll.
Exactly, yeah. So if there's something important happening with clients that are on TV, they keep that on there. Watch this show at this time, and then like a cool visual. It's just a nice way to keep something up at the top. Okay. But having all the pieces in place, like if there's a few things that are missing, people may get hung up on that, and they may not call you. They may say, oh, he's got lots of followers, but his profile looks like crap. I don't really believe that those are real followers, or I don't trust him. It's really about trust. So if you've looked after all of these pieces, it's going to work for you by doing, follow, unfollow strategy for growth. Doing that, which I go into, it takes a little while to explain, but I go into that in the book on how to do that, to get in front of new faces. When these people circle back to you and they like what they see, a lot of times they're going to take the first step, which it's wonderful. I mean, I don't have to sell. I don't have to do anything for my brand. I just exist, and I'm proactive about getting in front of new faces. And a lot of times these are the people that start the conversation. And it's led to websites. It's led to clients. It's led to all kinds of leads. It's led to podcasts, it's led to all kinds of stuff. But you've really got to make sure everything is in place so that reaction is more likely to happen.
Right. This has been a great segment. There's a lot of great information here. I really appreciate you coming in. The book is called Shut Up and Tweet, How can people get it? I assume on Amazon?
Yeah, it's on Amazon. We've got it on Kindle. We've got the hard copy, which is Prime eligible. So if you order it, in the U.S., you'll have it, within 2 days. It's pretty cool. And then we've also got an audiobook. I'm assuming that your audience probably likes to listen to stuff.
Sure. I hope so.
It'll be on Audible, as soon as today. I'm just waiting for them to post it.
Oh, that's exciting.
And so you get to listen to me read the book. How fun is that? No, the book is pretty sassy. It's pretty honest. It's to the point. I kept it short on purpose. Because no one has
Twitter.
time. It's Twitter, exactly.
It's more than 140
How
characters
silly,
anyway.
Exactly would it be to create a book that's long-winded? I keep it right to the point because my clients do not have time. Yeah, I have all the information at shutupandtweet.com, and it's on my website, so people can check it out.
And what's your Twitter handle?
My Twitter handle is @Phil Pallen, Pallen, and there's a few little nuggets in the book where I tell people to tweet me, and I want to hear from people what they think and how things are working for them.
Well, this has been great. Phil Pallen, thanks for coming into LA Business Spotlight.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
You've been listening to LA Business Spotlight. If you have a company or service and you'd like to appear on the show, send an email to info@iceboxlogic.net.
This podcast was recorded at the studios of Icebox Logic.